Hey everybody, I'm Kendall.
I'm Jono.
And we're bike gearheads.
And today we're talking about the Rocky Mountain Altitude and the Ibis Ripmo.
These are our enduro bikes, but we are reviewing a bunch of other bikes in our mountain bike guide. Check it out at the link above. If you want to skip around in this video, we have chapter timestamps below, but let's get into it.
Up first, let's talk about the Altitude.
We rode a different build than the one you see behind us for the bike launch. That was the C70 coil build. This one behind us is a full custom build that we'll have a long-term review on coming out soon. Keep an eye out for that one. We'll be basing this conversation around that C70 build that I mentioned.
Yeah. And before we dive too deep into the Altitude, let's kind of run through the whole lineup that Rocky Mountain has, let people know where this one fits.
Rocky Mountain has 4 full suspension mountain bikes. They have the Element, which is their cross-country bike. They have the Instinct, which is the trail bike. They have the Altitude, which is like the enduro race bike. And then they have the Slayer, which is kind of more like free ride, bike park downhill kind of vibe.
All right, so this is a new model for this year. We have a first impressions video that you can watch right here if you have not seen that. But today we're talking more broadly about the bike and how it compares to the Ripmo. Up first, let's talk about the Geo. What are the numbers on this bike?
I was riding that size large, like I mentioned, and it has 4 geometry positions. I was in position 2 while I was riding this bike. That gets you a 63.2 degree head tube angle, so proper slack, 478 mil reach in a large, pretty long, with a 450 millimeter chainstay, so about as big as a downhill bike. So it's definitely meant for going fast. But with all this, they still managed to pull off a 77.2 degree seat tube angle.
Let's talk about the tech specs. I see behind us here, we got a mullet setup. Are all bikes going to be mullet?
So you have some options there. The smaller sizes are going to come in mixed wheel, while the larger ones are going to come 29 only. The C70 build came as full 29, and then all bikes have like a dedicated mixed wheel flip chip that's separate from the like Geo Adjust flip chip.
Okay.
And so all bikes, all sizes, you can run either wheel size, and then you still get those 4 different geometry configurations per wheel size. Very cool.
Nice.
Besides wheel size, we're going to see 160 mils of rear travel on this bike with 170 mil fork travel. We're going to see in-frame storage on this one. I really like the way it works, actually. It's a great
penalty
door.
Box?
Penalty box with, and the door actually features a little air tag holder.
Oh, nice.
Probably my favorite part. Really separates it from the others across the industry, which is cool.
All right, what are our build options for this bike?
Yeah, Rocky has a great selection of builds on the Altitude. You're going to have 8 total options along with the frame set option. This C70 build that we tested for the first impressions video is the 3rd nicest from the top. All of the builds kind of have their own color options. Most builds have like 2 possible colors, and some of them are different from the others, while the frame is only available in this green and blue.
And if you do want to do a frame up build, we can do that. Just reach out to one of our gearheads and you can build up a bike like this one back here.
Full custom, baby. That pretty much covers everything on the Altitude. Let's move on to the Ripmo.
Yeah, let's get to it. All right, so now we got the Ibis Ripmo behind us, brand new. Just came out earlier this month.
Yeah, new version, exciting. New lines, new logos, looks great. You want to tell us where it fits into the Ibis line?
Sure can. So Ibis has a number of full suspension bikes. Starting out the HD6 is their biggest travel. Then we have the Ripmo, and then the Ripley, and then the XE, which is their cross-country bike. It's their larger trail bike.
Yeah, one of 2 trail bikes.
Yeah. You could even say it's a mini enduro bike.
Yeah, I mean, we stacked it up against an enduro bike,
Yeah.
so I think
so we want to see how it compares.
Fair comparison.
And so do the people at home.
So with the new bike, we have a bunch of new Geo and stuff. Why don't you tell us about the Geo and the sizing?
First, let's start with sizing because this is a new size behind us. It is the extra medium, which is, if you look at the Geo chart, it's really large.
It's pretty similar to a large, but I see what they're doing. I think they're trying to just, urge people to maybe consider sizing down at the end of the day is what it's doing.
Yeah, so we have 5 sizes, starting from small to extra large.
Right.
With that extra medium in the middle.
In the middle there.
Yeah.
You mentioned this is the extra medium. What are the key Geo figures?
Yeah. The head tube angle is 64.5 degrees.
Nice.
The reach is 478 millimeters. And the seat tube angle is 76.5 degrees. Chainstay length, it does change by sizing, but the one behind us here, it is 436 millimeters.
Pretty balanced geometry. Long reach, but everything else seems pretty maneuverable.
Yeah.
What is the travel on this new Ripmo?
It is now 150 millimeters in the rear and 160 up front. Besides the travel numbers, the big thing is internal frame storage. It includes 2 Cotopaxi frame tube bags, which are really nice. And I think their cargo door is like one of the best in the industry. It's just really easy to access with gloves on or off.
Yeah, it's pretty different than anything I've seen. It features like an actual lever to open the door rather than just like those little, I don't know what to call them.
little flaps.
Those flaps that you see on the other ones that you like can't actually use very easily. I really like it.
Yeah, with the handle, it's like you have something to hang on to when you do take it off the bike. Other ones you kind of just like hold the bottle. Super nice feature.
So another new thing with this bike is going to be the wheel size options. What's the rundown there?
So with the updated frame, it can be run MX or 29, but sizes small and medium will come MX. Sizes extra medium and up will come full 29er. But any of the frame sizes can run either MX or 29.
Yeah, they have a dedicated flip chip, right?
Yeah.
That lets you dictate your wheel size configuration.
Correct.
Which is sweet. All right, Jono, which build do we have behind us?
So we have the Dior build, and there are 5 different builds. So it starts with Dior, goes up to a EXO transmission.
And then there's also a frame-only option.
Yep. So if you want to do a frame-up custom build, you can talk to our Gearheads. They'd be happy to help you out with that.
And then I believe all builds are available in the 2 colors, which are Heckleberry Purple and Olive Green Swamp Monster. Classic Ibis.
Yeah, they love their naming
Great
colors.
names. Yeah. So now that we've covered all the tech specs, let's get both of the bikes up here and talk about how they ride.
All right, so we got both bikes behind us. Now it's time to talk how they climb and compare the two. First, let's go with the Ibis Ripmo with its DW Link.
Yes, so as a DW Link bike, I mean, I think this is one of my favorite linkages for climbing efficiency, and the Ripmo is no exception. It climbs really well. It's probably more of like a sit and spin kind of climber for me personally, at least. It didn't necessarily inspire me to like get up out of the saddle and like charge, but it does provide really good rear roll traction for getting up and over things. You know, we talked about the climbing position a little bit with the steep seat tube angle, and I think it's really comfortable. You can do big days out. This isn't a bike that I would hesitate to log a ton of miles on throughout the week or take on like a big 30-mile ride. It's very comfortable, you know, all day long.
Nice. How's the front end feel when you're climbing? So it's 160 travel versus, we'll get to the altitude, it's 170.
As far as the front end goes, I think it helps that they're speccing, more of the aggressive trail forks rather than the full-fledged enduro forks on these bikes. I think that just helps save a little bit of weight. And then, 160 mile travel for fork is like plenty for descending, but I don't think it's enough where it would hinder you climbing a whole lot. And then another thing that I think helps as far as the front end feel is the 64.5 degree head tube angle is not over the top slack by any means, and it lets you kind of get up on top of that front wheel when you need to, balance over technical climbing features. So I think that helps a lot too. It doesn't feel like a big stretched out enduro bike, with a ton of rake or anything like that.
Okay, nice. Let's move on to the altitude. You've got a lot of miles on that bike. How do you feel like it climbs with its bigger travel and different suspension design?
Yeah, I think the altitude definitely takes a different angle at just how it gets around the mountain. The new rear linkage that they're using with the concentric bottom bracket design is really impressive on the descents, even with an air shock. It definitely doesn't feel quite as efficient as the DW Link on the climbs, but I don't think it's a really big difference, honestly. I think it just has a little bit more bob, and I find myself reaching for that climb switch a little bit more frequently. It's not just the rear linkage too. Like, this is a properly big bike. Everything, the wheelbase, the chainstay length, the head tube angle, everything's just bigger, slacker, longer. So I think that's going to be part of it too. I mean, this is a bike that I'm definitely staying seated in. Probably going to opt for fire road climb options before single track a lot of the time. Okay. But that being said, I still feel like I can comfortably take it on long days out. We have a lot of riding like that here in the early season, where we're doing, finally getting into the high alpine and, taking the bikes on big long rides, and the bike kept up just fine. I think it's more just the attitude of it as it's doing it. Like, it just wants to stay seated and get up there on its own time. It's not in a big hurry. Whereas the Ripmo, I think, has a little bit more of that get up and go.
Yeah. And it makes sense looking at the Geo and the travel
numbers, exactly.
All right, so now it's time to descend. Which one are you going to pick for your everyday descent?
Yeah, I mean, they both have really good strengths. I think the Ripmo is an obvious choice for, I think, more like smooth surface flow trails. I had a ton of fun riding it on some local jumps here. And that being said, it still holds its own in the tech, but I mean, the altitude really delivers something special when it comes to the steep and nasty descents around here. I found myself riding gnarly downhill trails that I also ride on my downhill bike and feeling like I was really close for speed. It's so long and the suspension works so well. Like, when I'm riding the altitude, I feel like I can just push through tricky sections, and if I mess up my line, it's not going to be a big deal. Whereas like with the Ripmo, it's a little bit more like you feel some pressure to place your wheels in the right spot. Otherwise, it might get a little bit deflecty, you know? But I still felt like I could confidently ride really technical trail sections. I'm just like maybe not quite getting off the brakes at every opportunity like I would be with the Altitude.
Okay. So who are these bikes for? Because I think it's going to be a different rider for each one.
I think the same person could have a lot of fun on each of these bikes, but starting with the Ripmo, I think this is a little bit more on the aggressive trail end of the spectrum. You can definitely ride enduro tracks on it, but I'm not sure I'd jump towards it for like a dedicated enduro race bike. You know, this is a bike for someone who really wants to spend some time in the saddle. Maybe is still shuttling or riding bike park occasionally, but that's maybe not like their main jam. They like human-powered rides where they're still going out and doing like pretty gnarly stuff. And then I just think it's worth noting that it's a super fun jump bike. So if that's something that you like, it's a great option. I think the conservative geometry, like shorter chain stays, you know, not crazy head tube angle or wheelbase, all kind of work together to make a really maneuverable package that can still push hard in the tech.
Okay. So if you're the full-on enduro racer, maybe look at their HD6 instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you're a full-on enduro racer, that's definitely a worthy rider for the Rocky Mountain Altitude. This is a bike that kind of challenged my conception of what single crown fork bikes can do. A balance between that new linkage design that they came up with and the geometry of the bike, for sure. I mean, the large was so long that I actually thought that it might be the right size for me at 6'4", and then I ended up trying the XL behind me here, and this one I kind of had to run the geometry a little bit tighter, even though I'm like usually almost always a tried and true XL. And then that's another huge perk of the Altitude is the Geo Adjust. I mean, we haven't even really talked about all the options. It has the flip chip for the wheel size. It has a 4 configuration shock mount bolt that gives you like, 4 different head tube angles, and then, you know, the other numbers change from there. And it also comes with a reach adjust headset. On a bike where descending is your main priority, I think having those geometry adjustments can just make a really big difference in finding what's most comfortable for you so that you can, you know, really like comfortably descend for a long time throughout a day. You know what I mean?
And you can adjust it if you're traveling to somewhere different and you want to have a different slightly setup, you can easily do that before you go. All right, so
That's how these bikes ride.
that's how they ride.
Let's weigh them.
Let's weigh them.
We got to see.
Different sizes, different. We have the weights from the large, so we should tell people.
Quite the comparison, yeah. We'll talk about the Altitude here first. So this is an XL frame that we're going to weigh. The large build that we rode earlier was 36 pounds. 3 ounces. This bike does not have pedals on it, and the glove box is empty. The Ripmo is also pedal free and with nothing in the glove box. So interesting comparison. We'll see how they stack up. We have to guess.
All right. 35 pounds,
Okay.
34 pounds.
I'm gonna go 35 and a half on the Altitude. And then I think I'm gonna say 36 flat on the Ripmo. I think it's heavier. 32 pounds, 13 ounces on the Ripmo,
So 34 then. Yeah.
which in kg is 14.77. We were both off by quite a bit.
Yeah.
Surprisingly light.
pretty light.
Yeah.
34 pounds, 4 ounces.
I was only 4 ounces off.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Comes out to 15.4 kilograms.
There
Not
you have
bad
it.
for an XL.
Yeah. All right, so we will have a long-term review on this Rocky Mountain Altitude. You've been riding it, and you'll be riding it throughout the season and give people kind of a full rundown of your build and then how everything kind of survived the whole riding season.
Keep an eye out for that video coming up soon. Thank you guys for watching this comparison video. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to let us know what kind of videos you want to see in the future, drop a comment below.
Yeah, if you have any questions about either of these bikes, reach out to one of our gearheads and they can help you build one up or pick out the right model for you. And we'll see you out in the trails.
You.